San Juan, Puerto Rico, dozens of well-known leaders in Jamaica, including professors and politicians, are demanding an apology and slavery reparations as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge prepare for a trip to the former British colony. The group is rejecting the visit of Prince William and Kate scheduled for Tuesday, part of a larger trip to the Caribbean region that coincides with the 60th anniversary of Jamaica's independence and the 70th anniversary of the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. "We see no reason to celebrate 70 years of the ascension of your grandmother to the British throne because her leadership, and that of her predecessors, have perpetuated the greatest human rights tragedy in the history of humankind," read a letter published Sunday ahead of the couple's visit and signed by 100 Jamaican leaders. The week-long royal tour of Central America and the Caribbean that began on Saturday was taken at the behest of the Queen, who is William's grandmother. The trip aims to strengthen Britain's ties with Commonwealth countries, but it's off to a rocky start and comes as some countries consider cutting ties to the monarchy like the Eastern Caribbean island of Barbados did in November. Local opposition forced the royal couple to cancel a visit to a cacao farm in Belize that was planned for Saturday, while the upcoming trip to Jamaica has angered some who say they are still waiting for an apology and slavery reparations. Jamaica lawmaker Mike Henry, who has long led an effort to obtain reparations that he estimates at more than £7 billion, told the Associated Press in a phone interview that an apology is only the first step for what he described as abuse of human life and labor. "An apology really admits that there is some guilt," he said. Hundreds of thousands of African slaves toiled in Jamaica under more than 300 years of British rule and faced brutal conditions. There were numerous bloody rebellions.
And today we know those so-called Africans to really be Hebrew Israelites. Call halal Yahweh Bashem Yashai Bashem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elder apostles, the elder Akim, you sincere Akim of Great Millstone, doing the work, pushing his truth worldwide. Barakawa Ba'amaf. And you sisters, you Akwaf, diligently listening and learning. Salutations to the election of Israel. I pray I am of that number. In any event, Shalom Yasharallah. We are almost home. This is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 6. And it reads, "From the sole of the foot, even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment." And one of the many wounds, bruises, and putrefying sores that will never be healed until Yahweh Shai returns to redeem us is what? Slavery and the effects of it. Matter of fact, it was Willie Lynch. By now, most of you have heard of the Willie Lynch letter and whom the term lynching came from. He was for those not to know, he was a British slave owner with a plantation in the West Indies that was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his methods to the slave owners of the New World, detailing how one should break his Negro. And ironically still, it is the British Crown who pays its proceeds mainly from the sweat of your brow, i.e. taxes and the draining of the plethora of the other nations' natural resources under their ownership to the Vatican and the other bloodline families. It is the British who also own the Virginia Company of London, the corporation you know today as, wait for it, America, which is yet another reason why ADOS made no real sense to me, because the slave trade, the know-how to buck breaking, the breaking of slaves, period, wasn't an isolated incident. I mean, these Edomites and the other nations who were confederate in destroying we Israelites as a nation, pursuant to Psalms 83, worked in conjunction, meaning it was a consolidated endeavor, a group effort. For those of you who are listening and learning impaired, the Brits and the American colonies were working together. But that be Jake. Gotta have two of everything except when it comes time to form a unified front. Then it's one for you, 1, 2 for me. In a place on this planet where Israelites haven't been held captive and still left subject to Babylon's wicked system. But here comes Jake talking about you fend for yourself now. There be math majors falling out of the sky with pocket protect. Math magicians that be falling out the sky with pocket protectors nailed to the chest when it comes time to calculate reparations, who gets what, who gets where, and where everything should be allocated, that you'll never receive. Newsflash, but still more strength in numbers on Black Friday when it's time to stampede a nigga out his Gucci slides. Makes no sense to me at all, but that be Jake. In any event, I digress. Let's read that one again. This is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 6, and it says this. From the sole of the foot, even onto the head, there is no soundness in it, meaning every member of the body of Israel was afflicted and affected, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores, they have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Again, those wounds remain fresh, as you heard in the opening clip. Never mind the Brits, the northern and southern tribes of Israel has been catching hell a long time under the subjection of Esau out in the Caribbean. Ever since Columbus touched down, the West Indies have stayed the object of exploitation under the thumb of the colonizer. Jeremiah 50:33, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Speaking to you, so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, Latinos, and so-called natives and West Indians. Let me read you this excerpt from a short account of the destruction of the Indies, written by Bartholomew de las Casas in the 1500s, about the atrocities committed against the Taino and Arawak Indians, the so-called indigenous peoples of the Americas in colonial times. It says this. In 1509, the Spanish, with the same purpose in mind as they had when they landed on Hispaniola speaking to Haiti and the Dominican Republic, the Levites and the Simeonites, respectively, found their way to the two verdant islands of Puerto Rico, the Ephraimites, and Jamaica, speaking to the tribe of Benjamin, but Judah was there also. Both of them lands flowing with milk and honey. Here they perpetrated the same outrages and committed the same crimes as before, devising yet further refinements of cruelty, murdering the native people, burning and roasting them alive, throwing them to wild dogs, and then oppressing, tormenting, and plaguing them with toil down the mines and elsewhere, and so once again killing off these poor innocents to such effect that where the native population of the two islands was certainly over 600,000, and I personally reckon it at more than 1 million. Fewer than 200 survive on each of the two islands, all the others having perished without ever learning the truths of the Christian religion, aka plantation Christianity and white Jesus, and without the benefit of the sacraments, i.e. baptism and the Eucharist, drinking the wine and eating the wafer, and the anointing of the sick. I don't know if you heard that, but that's more than 1 million Israelites. And you can only imagine the trauma suffered from their circumstances, as well as the new hell they were held subject to, serving under their bondage in America, passed down from generation to generation. You can see the psychological damage in the psyche of we Israelites today. Matter of fact, Senior Lynch, in his letter, told the other slave owners that he had discovered the secret to controlling we Israelites on the plantation, setting us against one another. You still can see the effects of it playing out today, mostly in hip-hop and so-called black culture. I mean, you'll never hear of Willie Nelson running down on Garth Brooks. Yeah, I got the drop on him at the Grand Ole Opry. You'll never hear that. But that be Jake. Isaiah 1:5 says it best. The whole head is sick. But wounds and bruises and putrefying sores, they have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. The ointment is this truth. This is how the wounds will begin to heal. Finding out why you were subjected to this punishment in the first place. Why? Simply because we as a nation who were created to be a special people unto the Lord rebelled and sinned against the Heavenly Father. Going through these hellish conditions, you then understand only if the Spirit is dealing with you, that we were being purged of our impurities in order to come out right. pursuant to Zechariah the 13th chapter. When you understand that, and that the ones responsible will have to go into slavery under you, you speaking to the election of we Israelites as punishment and not reparations, because there is no amount of money that can repair what Esau has done to Israel. No affirmative action, no marching, no rioting or protesting, no building back better, no leveling of the playing field or global reset, and no apology will right his wrongs against the apple of Yahweh's eye. When you realize there is a kingdom to be ruled by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua and the elect judged under righteousness, that all the wealth and land stolen from us by Esau will be recovered, with Esau himself as our inheritance. Psalms 2 and 8, ask of me and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance and the othermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Then will the wounds begin to close. When we are finally delivered by Yahweh Shai and the heavenly hosts, our land is then purged and returned to us, and we are in our own kingdom once and for all. Then the wounds will be healed. Psalms 107 and 20 says, he sent his word, which is Yahweh Shai, and his truth, and healed them and delivered them from their what? Destructions. So unless you've, really, I thought about it and I was like, unless you've been to Yard, and I don't mean the resorts advertised on TripAdvisor or countries like it, lived in the projects or on a reserve even, then you really can't understand the full extent of what the IMF and the US did to the Isle of Jamaica. Almost 45 to 50 years ago, it was Esau under the guise of the IMF, along with America, aka Babylon, who made the move to destabilize the island. Actually, it was the US, Canada, and the military-industrial complex that first set it in motion, because the government of Jamaica wanted more on the exchange of the island's natural resources, i.e. aluminum and bauxite. Esau needs a box for real. And you know how the story goes. Sanctions, the consequences for opposing the white man's imperialism, soaring prices, and of course the inflation. Then there's the CIA and their propaganda war machine turning political factions against each other, then flooding the island with guns for ganja. Esau set out to systematically destroy Yard for their insolence, but ultimately it was all according to Yahweh's will. Because truth be told, the spread of wickedness, idolatry, and witchcraft, which is, a lot of it is still happening today. Don't act like you've never heard of Obia or hedonism too. Habakkuk 2 and 5 says this of the colonizer. Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine, the wine speaking to his wicked philosophies. And of course, I'm speaking of Esau Edom. In part are the deceptive measures he takes in ensuring his rule. He is a proud man, meaning he thinks big of himself because of how easy it is to pull the wool over your eyes. Neither keepeth at home. Now, tell me he, and the he being E again, isn't in everybody's kitchen but doesn't know the flavor. Who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people, i.e. perfectly speaking to his new world agenda. Because he has gotten away with his deceptive practices hidden under the guise of quote-unquote capitalism and strategic market models like the one he sprung on Jamaica, and as of late the Great Reset, that you would or should submit to because it is only to the benefit of you and increase in growth and our nation's prosperity. E Dum-Dum's head has gotten big and swollen. Ergo, his pride in self has fueled his ego-driven ambitions, and the end result is he wants more and more and more, with no care of who he has to destroy to get it. Everywhere Esau goes is death and destruction. But the other nations have long grown tired of his oppression being spearheaded by the United States. Civil unrest and protests and asking for apologies and whatever have you against the it's coming out against the white establishment. Period. It's only the beginning to what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai has in store for the house of Edom, aka the bold and the greedful. Let's get two more and we'll close out. Let's go to Genesis 49 and 27. And it says this: Benjamin shall raven, raven, literally meaning to tear in pieces, as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. Now, we so-called West Indians are the people this prophecy best describes. When we were shipped out of West Africa into Jamaica and the West Indies, period, at the hands of the Spaniards in the 16th and 17th centuries, later by the Brits who had taken Jamaica from the Spaniards in, I believe, 1655. The southern tribesmen were already there. A lot of we Benjamites escaped into the mountains in the new wilderness, where we gave hell to Dummy, the overseer, rebelling against being held captive to working the sugarcane fields. We ravened them to the point we were able to gain some form of liberty, at least long enough to build our own communities. Hence the name the Maroons, which comes from the Spanish cimarron, which means wild or untamed, rough, uncouth. It was used to refer to us as lazy and runaway or fugitive slaves. I don't think it too far-fetched to suggest the nomer for Maroon speaks to the Morenos, particularly the Moorish captives from Spain. But in any event, because of multiple uprisings, groups of so-called Maroons, which incidentally speaks to the color brown or a reddish brown, go figure, were deported to Canada, Nova Scotia to be exact, in the late early 1800s, and then to Sierra Leone. Probably why Scotians and those damn Yardies don't go so well together today, like Judah and Israel. They're from the same people, we're not knowing that we're from the same people. Anywho, that same ravenous spirit is heard in so-called conscious reggae music today. For those that listen to rock, as you know, the reoccurring theme has long been bun down Babylon, i.e. America and the white establishment, and what life and being impoverished has been like at the hands of the oppressor. Again, if you listen to rockers, then you also know spoken upon is our true lineage and being the children of Israel. Just like a wolf howls before a hunt, Benjamin has been howling at the most wicked practices of Esau for years, from Desmond Decker, Dennis Brown, to Bob to Buju, and on and on and on. And a piece of that, at least the sentiment, is what you're hearing in this in the opening clip. Let's close with this. This is Job, the 20th chapter. We'll start at 20 and 8, and it says this: He shall fly away as a dream, the he being Esau, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night, like a nightmare we once had. So will Esau's reign of terror against Israel and the world over end. After Yahweh Shai returns to redeem us and Esau serves us 1,000 years of captivity under our rulership, he will be done away with and finally disappear. Bye-bye. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. The next rulership is ours, is Jacob's. It's the 12 tribes. It's we so-called Negro, Salakia natives and Latinos, we Hebrew Israelites. Again, E's kingdom, his mansions, his palaces, his many resorts, his towers, his bunkers with swimming pools will be no more. Job 20 and 10, his children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods. Ultimately, reparations from E will be restored by force. Rioting, protesting, BLM, and all these other smoke screens set up to appease so-called people of color are just that. Band-aids and temporary fixes like stimulus checks that are, and the CERB checks are nothing more than pretending to put out fires that they know can never be quenched. True reparations would be if the goods being restored was Esau Edom himself, meaning him going into captivity and subjection under us. Job 20:11. His bones are full of the sin of his youth, which shall lie down with him in the dust. And that's Esau Edom, always claiming victim, blaming his forefathers for the atrocities we suffered in slavery. But we know better because he is just his forefathers reincarnated. He's just his forefather returned. Through wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, because he is in rule, and it is he that sits in the power seat. He can get away with his nonsensical psychobabble dribble. This nigga thinks he's Shaggy talking about it wasn't me. Yeah, nigga, it was you. And we'll continue on with his pass the buck and blame and shame game until the cows come home. Let's jump down to verse 15. And it says this: He hath swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. The heavenly Father shall cast them out of his belly. For example, when you throw up, it is an involuntary act. Ergo, the colonizer won't pay what he owes willingly. In any event, this is not referring to a literal belly. It speaks to the safes and treasure chests and the vaults where he holds the riches he has stole from us. He shall suck the poison of asps. The viper's tongue shall slay him, meaning his own deception will be his undoing. He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of what? Honey and butter, meaning you royals, you Rothschilds, you Rockefellers, you DuPonts will never see your laboring come into fruition, i.e. the great global reset and the Build Back Better and your new world order. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, meaning he will repair with his own, really our own substance, pursuant to Sirach 10:8, because wealth is never destroyed, it's simply transferred. Again, all that he took from Yasharallah must be returned, and he shall not rejoice therein, because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away a house which he builded not. And how about our identity? He knows who the real Israelites are, and by spoiling us and putting us in chains, he was able to jack our identity and wear it as a badge of sympathy today. Oh, the chosen people my ass, to deceive the other nations. Job 20:20, surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. All his ill-gotten gains being held for his retirement plan and the coup de grace, and him thinking that he's going to fly away in a big starship and get out of here and leave the earth to be damned, will not save him when the missiles go boom and Yahweh Shai and the angels in them chariots go pow. So let it be written, so let it be done. Fire! Call Allah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakak through the power and spirit. I hope you were edified. Double honors unto the elders, the apostles of Great Millstone, who teach this 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Remember, no test, no yab. Damn sure, don't take that chip. Shalom, Yasharallah. Kwam Yasharallah, wa abad babal.